This is Dan Szematowicz, and this is part 2 of Deviant's exploration into Christopher Dorner. The first major clue is the burning Nissan truck. Police discover it around 8:30 in the morning on February 7th near Big Bear Lake. It sounds like the truck everyone in California is looking for. Police run the VIN number and yep, it's Christopher Dorner's. Investigators see that this truck wasn't in an accident and that it didn't crash. This truck was destroyed intentionally. There are tracks leading away from the truck, but the trail is soon lost in the wind-blown snow that happens out there in February. Dorner could be anywhere, and everyone comes to find him. LAPD, California Highway Patrol, FBI, U.S. Marshals, San Bernardino Sheriffs, they all attempt to form a perimeter around the Big Bear area. They fill it with SWAT teams, armored vehicles, and sniffer dogs. Helicopters crisscross the airspace, always on the hunt. Authorities warn the public about Dorner's presence. Schools lock down or close. Residents are told to stay inside. Lock your doors. Don't let anyone in you don't know. If you see something, say something. Despite all that, Dorner doesn't turn up anywhere. If you know Big Bear, it's not that surprising. It's a huge, sprawling area, and parts of it are pretty remote. The region is dotted with cabins, vacation homes, outbuildings, and authorities are determined to search all of them. Over the next 2 days, we're talking February 7th and 8th, over 400 of those buildings are searched, with many more to go. It's tough work, cold, snowy, grueling. When police knock on a door and no one answers, they'll often force their way in and clear the rooms. After those 2 days of searching, there's still no sign of Dorner. Authorities are trying to game out why. Did he get out of Big Bear before the perimeter was put in place? Is he hiding in one of the cabins that has already been cleared? Did he somehow slip through police lines? Did the weather get him? And maybe this thing is all over. Anything is possible with this guy. The most alarming possibility is the one that's haunted everyone since all this started. What if he's actually out there hunting, waiting to strike? Without knowing whether or not Dorner is still in the Big Bear area, the entire state goes into a tense lookout for him. There are plenty of sightings, but none of them turn out to be real. But for authorities, the Big Bear area is still the best bet right now, so police settle in for the long haul. The search continues, and they need to find him fast before he attacks again. Everything changes on February 12th, 2013, and we're about to move from silence to chaos. It's noon when Jim and Karen Reynolds get to their vacation condo in Big Bear Lake. Like police, they're starting to think that maybe Christopher Dorner has slipped away again, that they're safe now. They don't know whether or not their place was searched, but given everything, they think they're good. They get out of their car, walk up to the front door, and open it. They walk inside. They're not alone. Christopher Dorner is there, looking at them. He's definitely still in Big Bear. He holds a gun, but doesn't fire. Instead, Dorner ties them up and puts pillowcases over their heads. He speaks calmly, apologizes. He says he doesn't want to hurt them, but he does want their car. So, he takes their keys, stocks up on food and supplies, and leaves the cabin. Then, he climbs into Jim and Karen's maroon Nissan SUV and hits the road. Back in the cabin, the Reynolds hear the car leave, and they work their way out of their restraints. And then, at 12:23 p.m., they call 911. As you could probably imagine, this stirs up an absolute shitstorm. Police now know that Dorner hasn't slipped away. He's in the area. And not only is he in the area, the cabin he was hiding in, Jim and Karen's, is actually directly across the street from a police command post. There's no indication that the cabin was ever searched, and Dorner was right under their noses the entire time. Now, the intensity of the manhunt gets cranked up back to maximum. And later that day, when Dorner appears again, the encounter won't be as quiet. Be sure to follow here to get the next part of the story. The big priority now is to find his car. Roadblocks, alerts, helicopters, all look for a maroon Nissan SUV. Police think that if they find that car, they find Christopher Dorner. Dorner knows that too. He's an ex-cop and trained military. He knows the playbook. He doesn't know that the Reynolds have freed themselves so quickly, but he does know that it's going to happen and that time is against him. As he leaves their cabin, Dorner doesn't try to escape the perimeter. Instead, he heads down Highway 38, probably in search of his next hideout. About 45 minutes and 25 miles after Dorner surprises Jim and Karen in their condo, a couple of school buses pass by officers from the Fish and Wildlife Department. They're being tailgated by an SUV matching the description of the one they're looking for. The officers swing into action and pursue the SUV. It takes off, and the chase is on. They're pretty sure they know who's in that car. Dorner gets off the highway and loses them in the mountain roads. In the process, though, he crashes the SUV into a snowbank. That vehicle is done. Then he takes off on foot, leaving a silenced sniper rifle in the back seat. He needs a new car now, and it's not long until he gets the chance. Around 1 p.m., and keep in mind this is just an hour since Jim and Karen walked into their condo to find him, Rick Helterbrake is driving in his Dodge pickup truck. Next to him is his 3-year-old Dalmatian. A man steps out in front of his car, and Rick hits the brakes. Christopher Dorner raises a rifle and points it at Rick. Like he does with the Reynolds, he says he doesn't want to hurt him. Just get out, take your dog, and go. That's exactly what Rick does. Dorner gets in the truck, and it takes off. A very short time after that, Rick says it feels like seconds. 2 Fish and Wildlife police trucks turn onto the road in front of Dorner. They're heading towards each other. They don't know that he's in the truck. They're still looking for the Reynolds SUV. As they pass that white pickup truck, Dorner opened fires from the inside. Contact. Fish and Wildlife officers return fire. Dorner floors it, and those officers lose sight of him as he rounds a curve in the road. When they try to catch up, he's gone again. Dorner ditches the truck in a ravine not too far away. He finds an empty cabin on 7 Oaks Road and takes cover inside. Police collapse in on the area. They absolutely flood the zone. And this is a tricky place to find someone who wants to hide. This part of Big Bear is heavily wooded, steep, dotted with isolated cabins everywhere. So police converge and begin organizing for a search. It's been only 25 minutes since Rick's white truck is carjacked, and as police gather on the property of a certain cabin on 7 Oaks Road, they're sure that Christopher Dorner must be nearby. They don't know that he's right there, and from inside the cabin, Dorner sees the nearby officers, raises his weapon, and takes aim. At 1:25 p.m., as officers congregate in front of the cabin, gunfire breaks out. It happens suddenly. It's nearby. Christopher Dorner is finally cornered, and police didn't even know he was there inside the cabin right in front of them. They're caught in a narrow and exposed area outside that cabin. Later, they'll describe it as a kill zone. The radio calls begin coming in. Shots fired, 7 Oaks cabin, returning fire. Shortly after that, officer down. And then, about a minute later, another officer down. The first officer hit is San Bernardino County Sheriff's Deputy Alex Collins. He's badly wounded, in the open, and unable to move enough to reach safety. The second officer hit is San Bernardino County Detective Jeremiah McKay. He's not moving at all. Police try to reach Collins and McKay, but the gunfire coming from the cabin is just too much. As the gun battle continues, officers say that Dorner begins throwing smoke grenades. This obscures their view of the cabin, but that works 2 ways. They need to get to those officers. An armored vehicle arrives and police pop some smoke of their own. That and the armor allows them to reach Collins and McKay and get them out of there. Officer Alex Collins is critically wounded, but alive. Detective Jeremiah McKay isn't. Reports say that his death was instant. Collins is airlifted to a hospital where doctors immediately go to work. He survives. Back at the cabin, the tone of the scene shifts for authorities. Another of their own is dead. The cabin is surrounded and snipers take position. The siege has begun. Law enforcement brings out loudspeakers. They attempt to contact Dorner and demand that he surrender. No response. Tear gas is thrown in. Again, no response or sign of surrender. There's no sign of anything. They don't see any movement at all. And then, around 4 p.m., Dorner makes the next move. He sets off green smoke grenades, again obscuring the view of what might be happening inside the cabin. Police commanders respond by authorizing the use of pyrotechnic tear gas canisters. Cops often refer to them as burners because they've been occasionally known to start fires when they're used. The radio call goes out over the air. Burners deployed. Several canisters are fired into the cabin. On this day, the burners live up to their name. Police will later say that they never intended to set the cabin on fire, but that's what happens. The fire inside spreads rapidly, and pretty soon, it's all in flames. Police get in position. They're preparing for Dorner to flee from the burning cabin. And then, around 4:20 p.m. on February 12th, police hear a single gunshot. The fire continues to intensify. The unfired ammunition inside begins to cook off, sounding like Dorner is firing again. But he's not. The cabin burns down completely. In the quiet and in the rubble, police search. They find a body in the cabin's basement. After 10 days, 4 murders, and the largest manhunt in California history, Christopher Dorner is dead. As the smoke from the cabin on Seven Oaks clears, the questions immediately begin about how and why this ends the way it does. Police now have another battle to fight, and this one is all about them. What exactly happened and what police did in Dorner's final moments becomes the focus. Tough questions are asked. How did Dorner actually die? Was it by his own hand, or was it the fire? The pyrotechnic gas canisters, the burners, why were they used? Why were firefighters held back once the fire began? One radio transmission in particular stands out to many observers. We're going to burn him out. These are all questions about tactics and intent. For critics of law enforcement, these are questions that need to be asked. Some say that burners should never have been used in this setting, that a fire was entirely predictable. And even if their use was called for, there are alternatives that could have been explored before it went that far. There's belief that a police culture of escalation contributed to this ending. For police, this is all second guessing from people who weren't there. They say the goal was always to capture Dorner, not kill him. That the fire was an unintended consequence. And once the fire started, police say that firefighters were held back for their safety. As far as they knew, Dorner was still ready to shoot anyone on sight. For them, the priority was the safety of officers and first responders. As to the burn him out radio transmission, police say that the member of the tactical unit who said that was referring to the burners themselves, not declaring an intent to actually start a fire. As the full picture of this story becomes clear to everyone, the scrutiny expands beyond those final moments. New looks are taken at Dorner's firing from the LAPD and whether his complaints were taken seriously enough. Dorner maintains until the end that this was all about clearing his name. Was there something to that? Was he failed by the system? The debate becomes sort of a Rorschach test that has little to do with Dorner himself and what he did, but policing itself. I'd love to know what you think and let me know in the comments, but here's how all this lands for me. For Dorner, the inciting incident was that complaint he made in 2007 against his training officer. There were no witnesses to the abuse he alleges that his training officer committed in the course of that arrest. The bystanders who were there don't back up Dorner's version either. His complaint comes 2 weeks after the fact, at the same time that his training officer files an evaluation that Dorner shouldn't be in the field, that he's not ready. This fits into a pattern. From the military to the LAPD Academy to his time as a probie to the time after his firing and right up to the very end, Christopher Dorner has always played the part of a victim. Nothing was ever his fault. Everyone was out to get him. Nobody respected him. And clearly through much of his life he lived with a simmering anger. I think that with each perceived injustice, his anger only grew. Eventually that anger turns into a plan for retribution, the perception that he's the only possible instrument of justice for himself, and those who are a part of the system that made him suffer must suffer themselves. The lives of those people and their families were forfeit. His was a quest defined by pain and fear. The logic of that quest, it defies reason, right? His victims had no direct link to him. Monica Kwan's only crime was being the daughter of a former LAPD captain who attempted to defend Dorner. Monica's fiancé, Keith Lawrence, he just happened to be sitting next to her. Riverside police officer Michael Crane was at a red light in his patrol car. San Bernardino detective Jeremiah McKay was hunting for a killer. Dorner had never met any of them in his life. They, and those who survived Christopher Dorner's attacks, were innocent victims of a deranged mind, one convinced of his righteousness. His cause was himself, and if a cop or someone in their family happened to cross his path, well, to him, they got what they deserved. The final battle with Dorner ended the way it was probably going to, one way or another. I don't think this was a man who was going to be taken alive, and police have experienced enough of those situations to know that's a likely outcome. The best you can do is try to protect yourself and those around you. As law enforcement, you're trained to do your best to resolve a situation peacefully. You always try. But some situations are more likely than not to end in bullets and in fire. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss more stories from our show.